3:22 a.m. The Philippine Sea, 208 nautical miles east of Luzon, Republic of the Philippines. The ocean here is among the deepest on Earth. The Philippine Trench lies 400 nautical miles to the southeast, and even in these waters the seafloor drops to 6,000 meters below the keel. The surface is warm, 28 degrees Celsius, a long, slow swell rolling in from the northeast under a sky thick with equatorial stars. Wind at 11 knots. Sea state 2. Visibility unlimited. A night so clear that the watch officer on the bridge wing of the USS Nimitz can see the Milky Way arc from horizon to horizon in an unbroken band of cold white light above the Black Pacific. The USS Nimitz, CVN-68, the oldest nuclear-powered aircraft carrier in active service, holds a steady course at 15 knots on a northerly heading. She is the center of Carrier Strike Group 11, on deployment in support of U.S. Indo-Pacific Command operations, carrying 5,067 personnel and an air wing of 58 aircraft. Her message to the Western Pacific, delivered simply by her presence in these waters. Freedom of navigation is not a request. Surrounding her in layered defensive formation, the Ticonderoga-class cruiser USS Princeton, CG-59, armed with 122 VLS cells loaded with a mix of SM-2 Block 3B, SM-6 Dual 1, and Tomahawk Block 5 missiles. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyers USS Shoup, USS Chaffee, and USS Fitzgerald, each armed with 96 VLS cells and the full Aegis Baseline 9.C1 combat system suite. The formation maintains a standard circular defense geometry. Princeton, 4 miles ahead of the Nimitz on the axis of advance. The 3 destroyers positioned at the forward quarters and stern quarter of the circle, each one a node in the Cooperative Engagement Capability network that fuses every sensor and every weapon in the formation into a single unified defensive brain. Above the formation, at 29,000 feet, an E-2D Advanced Hawkeye from Carrier Air Wing 11 pushes its AN/APY-9 radar picture across the Link 16 network to every ship and aircraft in the formation. The E-2D's radar is not searching for aircraft tonight. It is in maritime ballistic missile surveillance mode, a specialized scan profile that dedicates antenna time to the detection of high-velocity ballistic objects above the horizon, specifically objects moving at the velocities associated with boost-glide hypersonic weapons. The crew aboard the E-2D has been briefed. The watch teams aboard every ship have been briefed. The intelligence picture that arrived via secure satellite link at 6 p.m. the previous evening had been specific and alarming. The People's Liberation Army rocket force had been active. Satellite imagery from 36 hours earlier had shown unusual movement at the 627th Missile Brigade facility at Jianshui in Yunnan Province. The unit assessed as the primary operational formation equipped with the DF-17 hypersonic glide vehicle. Transporter erector launchers, normally positioned in their sheltered revetments in a configuration consistent with maintenance stand-down, had been repositioned to their launch preparation areas. The signal's intelligence picture had shown an increase in encrypted communications traffic between Jianshui, the Rocket Force headquarters at Qinghai in Beijing, and the PLA Joint Command Authority. An increase not of routine exercise character, an increase of the kind that American signals analysts described, in their classified assessment vocabulary, as operationally significant. The strike group commander had made his decision at 8 p.m. The exercise schedule was suspended. All ships would maintain full combat readiness throughout the night. The E-2D would fly extended surveillance orbits. VLS cell readiness would be confirmed at maximum capacity. And every watch team in the formation would receive a personal briefing from their ship's commanding officer. Tonight is not routine. Be ready, the DF-17. Dongfeng, East Wind, 17. A boost glide hypersonic weapon. A rocket booster carries the DF-ZF hypersonic glide vehicle to altitudes above 100 kilometers, where it separates and begins sustained gliding flight at Mach 10 to Mach 12, using aerodynamic lift to extend range and maneuver laterally to complicate intercept geometry. CEP assessed at 5 to 10 meters with active radar homing engaged in the terminal phase. Chinese military publications described it as a carrier-striking weapon. PLA officers had publicly stated it renders American carrier groups unable to operate within the first island chain. It had been paraded through Beijing as proof that the era of American naval supremacy in the Pacific was ending. At 3:22 a.m., the DF-17S launch. Not one, not two. 6 DF-17 hypersonic glide vehicles, launched from 3 separate TEL positions in Yunnan Province in a staggered sequence spanning 58 seconds. The first 2 vehicles launch simultaneously from the Jianshui facility. The second pair launches from a second TL position 12 kilometers to the northeast, 18 seconds later. The third pair launches from a third position 27 kilometers west, 39 seconds after the first launch. The stagger is deliberate, designed to create a time-on-target problem for defensive systems, with the 6 vehicles arriving at the target area in overlapping time windows that prevent sequential engagement of widely spaced threats. The boost rockets burn for approximately 90 seconds, carrying the DF-ZF glide vehicles to 120 kilometers altitude before separation. 6 DF-ZF vehicles are now in gliding flight above the atmosphere, spreading across a front of approximately 200 kilometers, heading southeast at Mach 10+ toward the Philippine Sea. The SBIRS, Space-Based Infrared System. Missile warning satellites detect the launch infrared signatures within 2 seconds of the first ignition. The boost rocket plumes are among the brightest infrared events in the monitored threat environment. Solid fuel boosters generating thrust equivalent to hundreds of tons of conventional explosive, burning for 90 seconds at altitudes that place them above any obscuring cloud layer. The SBIRS ground processing algorithms classify the signatures, compute the launch points, and transmit the missile warning data to the Indo-PACOM Missile Warning Center at Camp HM Smith in Hawaii, to the Ballistic Missile Defense System Operations Center at Fort Gregg Adams, and via satellite data link to the strike group's Link 16 network in under 14 seconds from the first ignition. In the Combat Direction Center of the USS Nimitz, the watch team receives the SBIRS warning at 3:22 a.m. and 16 seconds. 16 seconds after the first DF-17 booster ignited in Yunnan Province. The display shows 6 contacts: high altitude, ballistic phase, southeast trajectory. The tactical action officer is on his feet before the second alert tone sounds. General quarters. All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill. 6 DF-17 tracks inbound. SBIRS confirmed. ETA estimated 11 to 13 minutes. All ships, weapons free on authorization. Stand by for coordinated engagement. The alarm drives through the Nimitz and propagates across the Link 16 network to every ship in the formation in the same second. On the USS Princeton, the cruiser's Combat Direction Center transitions to full battle management mode. The Aegis baseline 9-point C1 software receiving the track data from the E-2D and the SBIRS feed simultaneously, computing engagement solutions against all 6 tracks in the first 40 seconds of the engagement sequence. On USS Shoup and USS Chaffee, the destroyer's Aegis systems are doing the same calculation simultaneously, each ship computing its own solutions but sharing data continuously across the Cooperative Engagement Capability network. The 6 DFZF tracks are distributed among the formation's shooters based on engagement geometry. Which ship has the best intercept angle against which track, which weapon system has the highest probability of intercept against the DFZF's specific terminal approach profile. They made 5 catastrophic mistakes. The first mistake, the E-2D. The PLA's targeting model assumed that the carrier strike group's primary sensor picture for the DF-17 engagement would be the AN/SPY, 1D phased array radars aboard the surface ships. Radars optimized for surface search and air defense against conventional aircraft and cruise missiles, whose performance against a hypersonic boost glide vehicle in the upper atmosphere was assessed by Chinese analysts as degraded. The E-2D Advanced Hawkeye was not in that model. Its AN/APY-9 radar in ballistic surveillance mode, operating at altitude with a downward-looking geometry that provides a radar horizon advantage of 200 nautical miles over surface-based systems, had been tracking the DFZF vehicles from separation at 120 kilometers altitude. The track quality achieved by the E-2D was superior to anything the surface ship's own radars could have achieved independently. And it was achieved 14 seconds earlier in the engagement timeline than the PLA model had assumed. 14 seconds at these velocities is the difference between an engagement that is possible and an engagement that is not. The second mistake, the SM-6 Dual Eye. The Chinese technical assessment of American intercept capability against the DF-17 had focused on the SM-3 Block 2A, the dedicated ballistic missile defense interceptor, as the primary threat to the DFZF glide vehicle during its exoatmospheric phase. The SM-3 Block 2A is a formidable system, but it is a dedicated BMD weapon not typically carried in large numbers aboard carrier strike group surface combatants. What the PLA assessment had not adequately weighted was the SM-6 Dual Eye modification, a software and seeker upgrade to the standard SM-6 that had been quietly validated and classified testing against boost glide targets, and that gave the SM-6 a limited but real engagement capability against hypersonic glide vehicles in the terminal phase of their flight. The USS Princeton was carrying 18 SM-6 Dual Eye missiles. USS Shoup and USS Chaffee were each carrying 12. 42 SM-6 Dual Eye interceptors across 3 ships. The PLA's intercept calculus had not accounted for 42 SM-6 Dual Eye missiles. The third mistake, the terminal maneuver assumption. The DFZF's lateral maneuvering was real, but the PLA modeled it against individual ships operating in isolation. The Cooperative Engagement Capability network fused every sensor, E-2D, Princeton, Shoup, Chaffee, Fitzgerald, into a composite track updated 60 times per second. A maneuver that would have caused a single ship's radar to lose track for 3 to 5 seconds caused the CEC network to update in 0.4 seconds. The maneuver advantage was negated before the first DFZF cleared the coast. The fourth mistake, the salvo size, 6 DF-17S against 42 SM-6. Dual Eye interceptors across 3 networked ships represented an undersized salvo built on an intercept probability model that assumed significantly lower SM-6 dual-eye performance than classified testing showed. When the real parameters were substituted into the equation, 6 vehicles was insufficient to overwhelm the defense. The fifth mistake was the most consequential. The PLA modeled an American strike group at routine readiness, surprised, reacting to an unexpected threat profile. They launched against a strike group at full combat readiness for 7 hours, fed by a detailed intelligence warning, every engagement solution pre-computed, every magazine confirmed loaded. The surprise advantage, the one variable that made the DF-17 salvo theoretically viable, had been consumed by the intelligence warning before the first booster ignited. At 3:24 a.m. and 40 seconds, 1 minute and 24 seconds after the first launch, approximately 9 minutes before first DF-ZF engagement range, the USS Princeton fires. 8 SM-6 dual-eye missiles climb from her forward and aft VLS cells in a 10-second ripple, accelerate into Mach 3.5, carrying the dual-eyes modified guidance algorithm and expanded altitude sealant for engagement against hypersonic glide vehicles. USS Shoup fires 6 SM-6 dual-eye at 3:25 a.m. against the remaining tracks plus 1 backup. USS Chaffee fires 6 more 30 seconds later. 20 SM-6 dual-eye interceptors climbing toward the upper atmosphere on divergent trajectories. The DF-ZF vehicles are descending at Mach 11. Seekers not yet active, flying inertial guidance toward the Nimitz's last transmitted position and executing pre-programmed lateral maneuvers of 40 to 60 kilometers. Shifts that would force any isolated fire control system to recompute its solution from scratch. The CEC network detects each maneuver onset in 0.4 seconds. The interceptors adjust. At 3:28 a.m. and 7 seconds, 5 minutes and 51 seconds after launch, the first SM-6 dual-eye intercept occurs. Track Alpha 1 is at 41 kilometers altitude when the Princeton's first SM-6 finds it. Closing velocity, Mach 14+. The SM-6's continuous rod warhead detonates at 4.2 meters, expanding a ring of steel at 3,000 meters per second. Alpha 1's guidance bay and thermal protection system are compromised simultaneously. The vehicle loses aerodynamic stability and tumbles into the Philippine Sea. 14 seconds later, track Alpha 2. Proximity detonation at 3.8 meters. Alpha 2's terminal guidance seeker, already actively tracking the Nimitz, goes dark. The vehicle falls. 2 down, 4 remaining. The second launch pair, vehicles Bravo 1 and Bravo 2, have been executing their programmed evasion sequences more aggressively than Alpha Flight. Bravo 1 has shifted its trajectory 62 kilometers to the south in the last 3 minutes, placing it outside the pre-computed intercept geometry of the first SM-6 salvo assigned to it. The Princeton's Aegis detects the track deviation at 3:27 a.m. and immediately fires 2 additional SM-6 dual-eye missiles from the aft VLS cells on an updated intercept solution. The USS Chaffee, whose firing assignment covers the southern approach sector, also fires 2 SM-6 dual-eye against Bravo 1's revised trajectory. 4 interceptors on 1 target. Bravo 1 executes a second lateral maneuver, 9 degrees to the east, at 3:28 a.m. and 32 seconds. The 2 Princeton missiles miss. Their computed intercept point shifted beyond their terminal divert capability. The 2 Chaffee missiles, computed against the updated track, achieve intercept geometry. The first misses by 11 meters, outside the proximity fuse's activation range for this target type. The second detonates at 6 meters. Proximity intercept confirmed. Bravo 1's control surfaces are severed by the continuous rod fragmentation. The vehicle becomes ballistic. It impacts the Philippine Sea 41 nautical miles north of the Nimitz formation. The warhead does not achieve the fusing conditions for detonation. No effect on any ship. Bravo 2 is engaged by 3 SM-6 dual-eye missiles from USS Shoop. The vehicle executes no evasion maneuver in its terminal phase, a possible guidance system anomaly, or a timing error in the pre-programmed evasion sequence. Without terminal maneuvering, the SM-6's intercept geometry is straightforward. The first Shoop missile achieves a direct proximity detonation at 2.1 meters. Bravo 2 is eliminated. The 2 backup missiles pass through the expanding debris cloud and continue ballistic, falling harmlessly into the Philippine Sea. 4 down, 2 remaining. The third launch pair, Charlie 1 and Charlie 2, had launched from the westernmost TEL position with a slightly different trajectory designed to approach the formation from a bearing offset 22 degrees from the primary attack axis. The offset approach was intended to force the formation's defensive geometry to cover 2 sectors simultaneously. Against a single-ship defense, a 22-degree bearing separation between threat groups would require the fire control radar to divide its track illumination resources between 2 sectors, degrading the engagement solution for both. Against the Sea-EC network, with 3 ships and an E-2D covering the full threat sphere, a 22-degree offset is a data point in a composite track, not a defensive problem. Charlie 1 activates its terminal guidance radar at 3:29 a.m. and 44 seconds, 182 kilometers from the Nimitz, precisely at the assessed terminal acquisition range. The SM-6 dual-eye assigned to Charlie 1 from USS Shoop's secondary salvo is already inside Charlie 1's radar acquisition range. Charlie 1's seeker locks the Nimitz. The SM-6's seeker locks Charlie 1. The closing velocity, Mach 13. The SM-6 detonates at 3.6 meters. Charlie 1 falls. Charlie 2 is the final vehicle. It is the most dangerous. It has executed the most aggressive terminal evasion sequence of all 6 vehicles. 4 lateral maneuvers in the last 3 minutes of flight, each one shifting its trajectory by 40 to 70 kilometers. 2 SM-6 dual-eye missiles assigned from the Princeton's first salvo have both missed. The vehicle's maneuvering exceeded the terminal divert authority of both interceptors in their final approach geometry. A third SM-6, the backup from Chafee's secondary salvo, achieves intercept at 309 kilometers from the Nimitz. Proximity detonation at 8.4 meters, the largest misses distance of the engagement, but within the weapon's lethal radius against a hypersonic glide vehicle at this closing velocity. The continuous rod fragmentation punctures Charlie 2's thermal protection system in 4 locations. The aerodynamic heat-in that the thermal protection was containing, kinetic energy converted to heat at Mach 10+, now reaches the vehicle's internal structure. Charlie 2 begins structural disintegration at 3:31 a.m. and 12 seconds at an altitude of 22 kilometers above the Philippine Sea. Its fragments rain into the ocean over a 47 nautical mile debris footprint. None reach any ship. 3:31 a.m. and 17 seconds. 9 minutes and 1 second since the first DF-17 booster ignited in Yunnan Province. 6 DFZF hypersonic glide vehicles. All 6 eliminated. 0 reach the formation. 0 impact on any U.S. ship, 0 casualties. The strike group commander's voice on the radio is the voice of a man reporting a weather observation. All units, strike group, 6 tracks, 6 intercepts confirmed. 0 impact. All ships fully mission capable. Counterstrike is authorized. Execute Pacific Sword. Pacific Sword had been prepared 48 hours earlier by Indo-PACOM targeting staff. A pre-built precision strike package, current to within 72 hours, covering every identified DF-17 facility in Yunnan Province reachable from the strike group's current position. At 3:32 a.m., the USS Princeton opens 24 VLS cells. 24 Tomahawk Block 5 missiles launch in a 28-second ripple, each one transition into terrain, following cruise at 550 knots toward Yunnan Province. USS Shoup fires 16 Tomahawks at 3:34 a.m. USS Chaffee fires 14 at 3:35 a.m. 54 Tomahawks total. 3 target complexes. Target Complex 1. The 627th Missile Brigade launch facility at Jinshui, Yunnan Province. The TEL vehicles have almost certainly dispersed per standard PLA post-launch doctrine. The fixed infrastructure has not. 3 launch pad revetments, hardened concrete structures at precisely surveyed coordinates, take Block 5 penetrating warheads. Launch preparation areas cratered. Fuel and oxidizer handling facilities take 2 Tomahawks each. Secondary detonations as propellant storage tanks rupture are visible on infrared satellite imagery within minutes. Target Complex 2. The DF-ZF maintenance and storage facility at Mengzi, 28 kilometers from Jianshui, identified by heat signature analysis over 18 months. The main storage building takes 4 Block 5 warheads in timed sequence, each arriving 4 seconds after the previous 4 sequential overpressure effect. Secondary detonations confirm the intelligence assessment of stored DF-ZF vehicles was accurate. The maintenance building and precision alignment facility, where guidance systems are calibrated before mating to the glide vehicle airframe, take 2 Tomahawks each. Target Complex 3. The 627th Brigade Command Facility at Jinshui, reinforced concrete, 1.5 meters wall thickness, housing the launch control center and the communication systems that transmitted tonight's fire control solution. The satellite antenna array on the roof takes the first Tomahawk at 4:07 a.m. External communications severed before any occupant processes an incoming warning. The main building takes 3 Block 5 warheads in sequence over 9 seconds. At 3:38 a.m., 12 FA-18F Super Hornets from Carrier Air Wing 11 launch from the Nimitz, each carrying AGM-154C joint standoff weapons covered by EA-18G Growler electronic attack aircraft suppressing PLA coastal radar systems. The strike package targets 3 additional DF-17 TEL positions on Yunnan's highway network. Vehicles tracked continuously by ISR for 48 hours. 36 AGM-154CS release at maximum standoff range over the South China Sea and glide northwest on GPS guidance, arriving over their targets between 4:18 a.m. and 4:26 a.m. At 4:09 a.m., 2B-2, A Spirit stealth bombers from the 509th Bomb Wing, airborne from Anderson Air Force Base on Guam for 9 hours under a classified alert tasking. Release 4 GBU-57A/B, massive ordnance penetrators against the DF-17 program's warhead and guidance storage facility at Chuxiang, Yunnan Province. 13,600 kilograms each, designed to penetrate 60 meters of earth before detonation. All 4 weapons impact within 90 seconds. The seismograph at the USGS station in Manila records 3 events between 2.1 and 2.4 magnitude. By 4:31 a.m., 69 minutes after the first DF-17 left its launcher in Yunnan Province, the Pacific Sword counterstrike is complete. Battle damage assessment, compiled by Indo-PACOM's Joint Intelligence Operations Center at Camp HM, Smith, and distributed at 7 a.m., is systematic and precise. Jianshui Launch Facility. All 3 TEL revetment positions destroyed. Fuel storage destroyed with confirmed secondary detonations. Mengzi Storage and Maintenance Facility. Total structural loss, estimated 4 to 8 DFZF vehicles destroyed in storage. 627th Brigade Command Facility. Communications array destroyed, main building severely damaged. Chuxiang Underground Storage, catastrophic structural damage from 4 GBU-57 impacts, assessed non-functional. 3 TEL positions on Yunnan Highway Network, 2 confirmed destroyed, 1 assessed total loss. 627 Missile Brigade DF-17 operational capacity reduced by 55 to 70% for a minimum of 18 to 24 months. Adversary personnel casualties, estimated 68 to 94. American losses, 0. 0 ships damaged. 0 personnel casualties. At 4:35 a.m., the USS Nimitz secures from general quarters and transitions to modified alert status. Flight operations resume. The Combat Air Patrol is reinforced with a fresh 4-ship F/A-18E section. The strike aircraft recover aboard, are rearmed and refueled, and are spotted forward for the next launch cycle within 50 minutes of landing. The ship comes to her base course and resumes 15 knots northerly. The Philippine Sea is quiet. The formation is intact. Somewhere 300 miles to the west, 6 DF-ZF debris fields mark the precise coordinates where the east wind met the Pacific and did not prevail. The mathematics of this engagement are the same mathematics that govern every attempt to strike an American carrier strike group. The defense absorbs. The response arrives. The launching infrastructure becomes a targeting solution. The Nimitz's wake cuts north across the Philippine Sea, radar sweeping, reactors humming, crew standing their next rotation with the quiet confidence of professionals who have done a difficult thing correctly. Freedom of navigation continues. The Philippine Sea stays open. It stays open because they are here, and they are not going anywhere.